Hello, everyone, and welcome to Schwab Coaching. My name is Cameron May. I'm a Senior Manager of Trading and Derivatives Education here at Schwab, and this is Getting Started with Thinkorswim. And today I was thinking about the Thinkorswim chart settings, and I know it can be spooky and intimidating, and it can seem difficult to learn all those settings. But today we're going to put on our brave faces. We're going to go to Thinkorswim charts. We're going to click on that settings gear, and we're going to learn what all of those nifty little tools and features allow the trader to do, how we can customize our charts using those tools. We're just solving that mystery finally. All right. So I want everybody this to be the sort of go-to guide for understanding the Thinkorswim chart settings. So let's get to that. But of course, very first thing I want to do is say hello to everybody who's already chatting in out there in YouTube. Great to see Janelle and Tony, Eva. Who else is here? Greg, David, Richard. Everybody else, thanks for joining us week after week. We always do appreciate your attendance and your contributions to these discussions. If you're here for the very first time, I want to welcome you as well. And if you're watching on the archive after the live stream has concluded, enjoy that presentation. The recordings are fabulous, but be aware that you're invited to join us in the live discussion. This is a Wednesday webcast series. We kick things off promptly at 2 Eastern time. If you'd like to be here in the live stream audience, we'd love to have you here as an audience member. And as a special treat for my live stream audience members right at this moment, I have my very good friend Kevin Horner. He's going to be hanging out in the chats. He's going to be addressing any questions that I can't get to. Kevin brings a ton of experience to this. We've been working together for years, so thanks for having my back there, Kevin. Kevin and I would also like to issue an invitation to everybody listening. If you have an account on X, you should be following your favorite Schwab presenters there. It's the best place to connect with us. So in between the live streams, I should say, but you can find Kevin there at Kevin Horner CS. You can find me on X at Cameron May CS. But let's get into this. And as we dive into these tools, we need to bear in mind the risks associated with trading and investing. The risks can be significant. So do bear this important information in mind. All corporate/issuer names and market data shown are for illustrative purposes only and are not a recommendation, offer to sell, or a solicitation of an offer to buy any security. Options carry a high level of risk and are not suitable for all investors. Schwab does not recommend the use of technical analysis as sole means of investment research, and investing involves risks, including the loss of principal. All right, so here's what we're going to be talking about today. As I mentioned, we're going to go into the Thinkorswim charts. We're going to click on this little settings gear, and we're going to go left to right, top to bottom, acquainting ourselves with all those little settings and customizations that a chartist can do on Thinkorswim, because I realize there can be a learning curve to it. It can feel intimidating, and I want to remove that as much as possible. Now, having said that, I'm going to be going through dozens of tools and features. Don't put the pressure on yourself to try to remember every single one. All we have to do is know where that chart settings tool is. If we can go there and you have access to this video recording after the fact, if we need to go back and revisit it, that's great. But I think there's going to be something for just about everyone as we explore all these features. So let's go right into the Thinkorswim desktop, and we're going to go right up here to our chart settings icon. And for right now, we're going to be using Amazon as our example stock. We're going to be tinkering around with its chart. We have a set of technical indicators automatically applied, and we're on a one-year chart. One-year chart with 1 day candles. So let's get up here and start tinkering with things. So I'm going to click on the little gear icon, and I'm going to make it as far into this as possible, going from the general tab all the way over to, if we can make it to equities, that would be an accomplishment. So let's start here on the general tab. First thing that we can do is check the box, and this will show any open orders that we have on a given stock. So for example, let's apply that, and we can see now, hey, we actually have a stop on these shares in our example portfolio. And there's a target order up here as well. And we must have 60 shares because there's a stop. Now, it's very likely we have 60 shares. The shares don't have to correlate exactly to the number owned on an exit order. But if you didn't know that, you can show your orders, and those orders can be adjusted by clicking and dragging, or we can cancel by clicking on the X. All right, nifty little tool there. Next up, we can show our positions. I inferred that we have 60 shares. Let's see. Right now, by default, it's showing do not show those positions. Let's change that. Now, we could show it just for stocks. We could include options, or we can show all. I don't have any options here. Well, let's go ahead and click Show All and come down to the bottom of the window, click Apply. And now as I move this out of the way, I can see, oh, look at this. Purchased 60 shares at $202.96. And there's a nice little horizontal reference line to show me where essentially the break even is for this trade. So we can see right now, red candle day, but we're solidly above break even. So nice that we can show our positions here. Let me switch that back to do not show and moving on to alerts. Yes, if we've constructed alerts, we can display that on the chart as well. So default is do not show. Let's show alerts. I want to show the full alert rather than just an arrow for the alert. So let's click apply here. And on this stock, I can see, well, what is this orange line up here? Well, there's a short encapsulation of the alert here. I must have told the system I want an alert to let me know if the market value of Amazon has risen up to greater than or equal to $240. And if I left any notes for myself, if I want to change the notification settings, I can right click on that alert and update that alert if I'd like to. DS Kim 6 says, I'm having trouble displaying paired option spreads on monitor tab. My apologies, DS Kim 6. I can't go off track with this attempt. It's tempting, believe me, to answer the questions as they come in. But as long as those questions are on topic, I'm happy to field those. But if they take us outside what I have planned for this discussion, maybe Kevin can get to that. But also, you can always call our support team for one-on-one assistance. All right. But let's see, we have, that's show orders, positions. We can see alerts. Did you know you can even remove the studies, not remove them, not delete them, but just not show them? This is a way of hiding the studies. So right now, I've applied a moving average and a MACD histogram to our chart. Well, if I uncheck the box for show studies and click apply, those disappear. If I check the box and click apply again, they reappear. Now, what I will say is that, let me close this for just a second, because this is kind of important. When I made that, when I unchecked that and then checked it again, the histogram actually got compressed to some extent. You'll notice our histogram's kind of squat down there at the bottom, a little bit shallow. The two fields between the price and our study field are separated by a little margin here. If I point at that, I can click and drag that to resize those if we want to. So if it happened to have shifted your preferred size of those two different elements, we can change those right there. Terrence says, very basic question maybe for the end, but how do I save my layout for when I log into Thinkorswim? I got a new computer, haven't gotten it to work. I have to, yeah, Terrence, I'll see. I doubt there's going to be time for me to show those sorts of specific features. But yes, you can save a layout, although most changes just save automatically. All right. But let's just go back up to our chart settings. We can hide and unhide, show those studies. This can also, we can hide and unhide the studies individually by using the Flask icon, which we've done in the past. Now you notice there's another box here that says highlight studies on hover. Here's what that means. Means by default, we get kind of like, for example, the moving average is kind of a thin green line going through our chart. Well, if I point at that, in other words, if I hover over it, it highlights that, makes it a little bit bolder. That's what that means. If you don't like to see that, if it's a distraction as we're moving around on our chart, because it can, that can be disabled. Just go up to your settings and disable that highlight studies on hover. Now, for some of you, the top 4 or 5 functions here on the general tab, probably not some huge revelations, but let's go on down here. And I think this is where eyes are going to start to open, even for those veterans here. Snap Drawings 2. I'll tell you what, when I first started using Thinkorswim, I like the nice smooth drawings. When I'm making a drawing, I don't want it to move around on me, but it was jumpy. It was really jittery. Here's what I'm talking about. Let's make a drawing here. Let me switch over to maybe a horizontal line. And if I start to draw a horizontal line, you'll notice as I move up and down, it has a nice smooth presentation. It doesn't jerk around. Well, there's a purpose to that jerky movement, and it's because Thinkorswim doesn't know what we want. And if let's go back here. And if we were to switch these snap drawings to, let's say I go to OHLC. That means we're telling Thinkorswim, I'm trying to position a horizontal line here, but my preference is to position it at a candle's open, maybe it's high, it's low, or it's close. So just move the line there for me. Save me the effort. Because some traders like precision. So for example, maybe they want their line to be at exactly the high of a given candle, but they don't want to have to put it there manually. Here's what I'm talking about. Let's select OHLC, snap the drawings to open, high, low, close, click apply, and click OK. Now if I draw a line, let's say I wanted to position it right up here at the top of that white candle. You notice as I move around, the line's not moving smoothly, it's actually jumping around. So as I move it toward the top of that candle, it's going to snap to that high. And to get it right on that candle, we point right at the candle that we want it to snap to. If I want it to snap to the high of this white candle, I point at that one. If I want to go to the low of this red candle, I point at that one, and so on. There we go. So that is the purpose of that setting. Let's come up here. Let's switch this back to none because I prefer the smoothness, but not everybody does it that way. And now we're going to use one that I suspect there are going to be very few people watching right now know how to use this, the synchronized crosshairs position. What is that? Adegallo says, or Adegayo, I don't know how that's pronounced. The position up here is missing under the general tab. Any reason for that? Yep, because that's paper money. A few of the things that I'm going to be showing today are only available on the live platform, which I'm currently using. Okay, so yeah, if something's missing, it's because you're on paper money. Paper money is a pretty good mirror of live, but it's not perfect. All right, so let's go to the synchronized crosshairs position. Let me know how many of you are familiar with this one, synchronized crosshairs. I'm going to check that box. Actually, let's uncheck it first because I want to show you conceptually what might be going on. So the crosshairs are just the little crosshairs right at the tip of my cursor. So as I move around, I can see price and I can see time intersecting. Now, if I'm on a grid though, let's say I have a grid and I'm looking at a 1-year chart of Amazon over here, and maybe over here, I bring up a different time frame. Let's switch this to maybe a 20-day hourly chart. Well, as I move around, I have crosshairs on this chart. As I move around over here, I have crosshairs on this chart. Well, if I choose to synchronize those crosshairs, let's click apply and click OK. Now, as I move around on this chart, it gives me a visual reference point for where I am on the shorter term chart. You see that? That's pretty nifty. Greg says, I don't like to sync crosshairs. Yep, not everybody does. That's why it's an optional function. It's only a distraction if we're looking at the grid, but that I wanted to explain how that works. Let's go back here and unsynchronize. Click apply and click OK. So now we don't need that grid for the illustration, but we do want to move on to some additional functions here. Yes, we can change our time zone right there. You can see I'm in Mountain Standard Time. I'm in the mountains of Utah. I'm actually in the valleys, surrounded by the mountains of Utah. Show high-low bubbles. This one also, traders can have strong preferences one way or the other. This is where we show there's a little bubble that pops up at the high of whatever chart time frame we're looking at and at the low of whatever chart time frame. So right now, it's not appearing. So if I go up to that chart settings, check the box for show high-low bubbles and click apply. Now what I see here is it tells me there's the 12-month high, $242.52. There's the low, $161.38. And that it's considered a study, but it's a tool here on the chart settings. I'm going to leave that one on, okay? It's going to serve a different function a little bit later. Now we can also check or uncheck to show the last price bubble. So what was the last price on Amazon? Well, I can see it's right over there, $220.26. And that's going to change as that last price changes. Well, if I don't want to see that over there, if I'm fine with seeing it up in the upper left, maybe in this case, what can happen is our last price is right next to our 50-period moving average. So I can't see the 50-period moving average value it's obscured by that last price. It's actually hidden behind it. Let me uncheck that button, apply. And now what we're seeing is not the last price, but actually the current value of that simple moving average, 218.80. So let's put that back on there. Click apply. We can also extend when we're displaying our order lines or our alert lines. Instead of just having those shoot off to the right by default, we can also have those extend off to the left, so we see a complete line traveling the full length of our chart. I think I'm just going to let you visualize that, but that's what that does. Another thing that I'm just going to let you visualize, because due to copyright concerns, I'm not going to show the logos for the companies here, but you can show the logo for like Amazon right up here in the upper left. Kind of a cool tool, but can't use those in presentations. We can also show trades. So if we've already seen positions, that's not a trade. That's the current position. When was it purchased? Well, we can click on this little box, click apply and click OK. And this is going to show us if there has been a trade on Amazon recently. And actually just today, I bought an additional 10 shares to illustrate this, because 50 shares were purchased back in July. 10 shares at $219.58 were purchased right there, a little arrow pointing at the day. If I were to switch this to a longer term chart, I could then see, they're the original 50 shares that I purchased at $199.64. Nice little feature there. Let's uncheck that box for show trades. Now, moving down the lower right, and I told you we're going through point by point, step by step. The general tab I figured was going to be one of the ones that takes me longer to go through. But this box for show price subgraph, what in the world is a price subgraph? Well, it's literally the price chart. If I uncheck that and I apply, panic is going to set in, because I can't see my price chart anymore. All I can see is the MACD. That's because I just told Thinkorswim not to show the price chart. Well, let's show it. There we go. We can also overlap volume on our chart. Now, if I choose overlap volume and click apply, nothing happened. What is going on here? This thing is broken. Uncheck it, apply, nothing happened. Check it, apply, nothing happened. Well, I must have told Thinkorswim I don't even want to see volume. I don't care whether it's on the price chart or below the price chart. I don't want to see it at all. That's actually one of the other settings right up here. We need to make sure that we are showing for equities, in other words, stocks, show that volume subgraph. We click apply there. Oh, now I'm overlapping volume on my price chart. As I click OK, you see now, because I hid my price chart, the proportions are off again. That's okay. We now learned we can resize our charts. Let's push our MACD down a little bit lower. But I now have volume applied on the price chart. And if I don't want it there, if I want it to display as its own chart below the price chart, just uncheck overlap volume. Click apply. Now volume's down there. Or some traders prefer it to be down below, or it might not be cluttering up their price chart. Now we have the data box. What in the world is the data box? Well, the data box is all this information that's captured up here: the date, the open, high, low, close, range, the y-axis value. By default, it's set to off. We can choose floating or fixed here. Okay, Yarek says, can I change a chart date axis from month to day to month name like on camera screen, July, September, October? Not sure what you mean quite, Yarek. It could do just with the time frame that we're reviewing. But let me change my floating here. Change this from off to floating and click apply, click OK. Now what you see is everywhere I move my crosshairs or my cursor, I have that date, open, high, low, close, all of that information is now following me around the chart. And for some, that makes it much easier to visually refer to. Like I can just point at a candle and I can see the construction of that candle right next to the candle, rather than having to look up in the upper left. And as a matter of fact, oh no, it's no longer displayed up there in the upper left. I can if I want to. Watch this. Let's go back here to the little to the little gear. When we switch this to floating, notice there's a box there that says auto hide the status string. That's what that bar is up in the upper left that shows us all of those values by default. Well, if I don't hide it, now I have it floating and I can see it up in the upper left where we're used to seeing that. All right, let's go back up here. We can also switch this to fixed and click apply. And that's just essentially going to bring up a box that I can reposition wherever I want. I can change symbols, but it captures that same information. I could even move this off to a side screen if I wanted to. But when I'm done, I can just click the little X and it's gone. Right? And that switches it back to off. Now, finally, we have the My Tools feature. This one gets overlooked plenty of times. My Tools puts another bar up at the top that allows us to add different tools, drawing tools and indicators and things like that. Let me put that on each chart. Okay, we click apply and click OK. And what you'll see now is this bar up here that has my trend line drawing tool, a text note drawing tool, by default, Fibonacci's and simple moving averages. I can add other tools here if I want to. Add a drawing tool or a study set. And it just creates this quick reference bar up there at the top. Anyway, so that's how that has changed. Let's go back up here. I'm going to turn that off. Apply, click OK. So the My Tools we've explored. I recently did a video in this webcast series. So if you're not familiar with this, you can find all of our previous videos by visiting our channel on YouTube. So our full channel name is Trader Talks Schwab Coaching Webcasts. Just find us on YouTube. Make sure that you subscribe to our channel. You can do that by going down the lower right-hand corner, clicking on that subscribe button. It only takes a second. It doesn't cost anything. But this is where we house our playlists of previous webcasts. You can also join our live streams right here. So if I were to go to playlists, for this webcast series, it's all the way down at the bottom. We have lots of different webcast series. So I'm going to go to View Full Playlists. And just recently, here we go. 5 cool stock chart tools you didn't know were on Thinkorswim. That one, the My Tools feature, was one of those that I featured here. So you may want to check that out. All right, but back here, let's work our way through as many of these other tools as we can. Let's go to the price axis. So again, all we're doing, each time I'm making a change here, I'm just going to chart settings and moving now to the next tab, the price axis. So think about that. What is the price axis? Well, that's this over here, the vertical arrangements of price and price related functions. So the first thing, we can check the box that says fit high low. That one, there's just virtually no circumstance where we're going to see a big difference between the charts. Conceptually here, it will fit the chart automatically to whatever range is being displayed. It just does that anyway. All right, so this one, it's one of the very few functions where I haven't encountered a big use for it yet. Could just be missing something. Jim says, when yours is set, my volume's not same as Cameron's. Yeah, my apologies. I don't know. Jim, could be a number of things, different time frame, different stock, could be all kinds of things that could be different. Fit orders. One thing you didn't know, actually, yes, you did. When I was showing the orders here, so now that we know that we can show orders, let's apply that on our chart. You can see my limit order right up here. Sometimes we'll have an order in place that's off the top of this, off the top of the chart. In that case, Thinkorswim will still let you know there's an order waiting up there. It'll create just a little pill and point up. These are what we call pills, these red icons. But if we want to see our orders, if we want to compress the chart so that we can see those at all times, we can check the box there for fit orders, okay? We can do the same thing for fit alerts. If we have an alert that's off the top of the chart, there will be a little pill hovering there at the top of the chart saying, Cameron, there's something going on up above. If we want that to fit, just check the box here. checking the box for fit studies. So it's quite possible that, well, by default, Thinkorswim will fit a study. Let's say you're using a Bollinger Band. For those of you who use Bollinger Bands, it draws support and resistance levels, basically, above and below the price. Well, those don't have to fit on a chart. Sometimes they can go off the top of the chart. They can go off the bottom of the chart. By default, Thinkorswim fits that on there. If this box is unchecked, it won't. And as a matter of fact, our high and our low are also considered studies. So if I were to, let's uncheck the box for fit studies and click apply. Now you'll notice our high is kind of squeezed off the top because you told Thinkorswim, I don't need to see that. I need to see price, but not studies. Okay, so let's check that box again. We can do the same thing with fit patterns and fit predicted price ranges for studies that project price ranges. Now, this is a tool that I think that a lot of people are familiar with as far as the right side of the chart is concerned, but we didn't know that we have default settings for what we call expansion areas. Expansion areas are used when a chart, when maybe price is getting up close to the top of a chart, or it's getting down close to the bottom of the chart, and what we'd like to see is just some more space below the chart, or some more space above. So this allows us to set certain percentages. We can use a menu to choose 10% above and 10% below, for example. If I click apply, watch what happens to our scale over here. Right now, it looks like we're bottoming out around 80, topping out around 240. I'm going to click apply and click OK. And what this just did is it extended the chart 10% below the low and 10% above the high. So we have more room to make drawings, to see different price levels, that sort of a thing. So that can be changed here as a preference on our price axis, and that's now portable from one symbol to the next. So if I go on to General Electric, or I go on to look at Ford, those are automatically going to have 10% above and below as well. So I'm going to set that back to 0. And now we're going to talk about this custom interval. What is this? Well, by default, you'll notice Thinkorswim customizes the price intervals. Notice with this stock, with Amazon, it's going from $80 on this y-axis up to 100 and 120 and 140 and 160 in nice even increments that are tailored to Amazon. If you had a stock that was, let's say, a $5,000 stock, going in $20 increments might be too small of an increment, so it would be changed automatically. But we can customize that. We can change this to say, well, what if I want to see $10 increments, as an example? Let's click apply, click OK. Oh, you know what? Our Thinkorswim just did, and it does this as well. One thing I need to do here, let's hide our volume again. Let's remove the studies for a moment so we know how to do that. Let's go to the general, uncheck the box for show studies. Let's go over to equities, uncheck the box for show volume, click apply, click OK. But here are those $10 increments that I just chose. When I had all that other stuff on my chart, Thinkorswim said, Cameron, I know you want $10, but I can't even fit it in there. It's going to get too crowded over there. So it just defaulted up a minimum amount, whatever it takes to get it so where it can fit in those custom values. So there we go. So if I were to go to that custom interval, if I tried to say now, well, can we fit in $1? Do you think we can go from 80? Can we show 80, 81, 82, 83, 80, 45, 86? No, it's not going to work. But let's give it a try. Click apply. And Thinkorswim just did a calculation. It looks like it can fit in not every dollar, but every $8. That's the smallest increment it can fit here. I'm not going to put in custom intervals, though. All right, now this is one Okay, Eva says, Cam, please let me clarify. Are we able to show substantial orders and not fractional shares? Yeah. In other words, yeah, I'm not aware of fractional shares being a display capability, Eva. Good question. Jim says, yeah, okay, that looks like he's addressing that on his own. All right, good. When the world is a log scale, this is an abbreviation for logarithmic, fancy term. Right now, what Thinkorswim is doing is you'll notice it's showing a chart. It's showing Thinkorswim's price chart. And the scale for price is in $20 jumps, because for Thinkorswim, that's kind of appropriate on a higher price stock. $20 would be too small. On a lower price stock, $20 would be too big. So it's adjusted to the stock based on what it's done over the last 12 months, or if we're looking at a 1-year chart. But a logarithmic scale actually does this not in equal dollar amounts, but in equal percentage amounts. So I'm going to check that box. And some traders prefer to see the logarithmic advancement of the stock because a 10% move now is equivalent to a 10% move back then. A $20 move now is not, in percentage terms, equivalent to a $20 move when the price was lower. So for some traders, they prefer to use this, and they might see it as maybe a clearer picture of where support and resistance levels might be. That sort of a thing. It might show, let's say, a deceleration of a trend that may be moving up in the same $20 or $10 increments. It might be looking like it's moving up just as fast as ever, except on percentage terms, those $10 moves are becoming smaller and smaller and smaller. The stock might not be going up as rapidly. So there can be different motivations there for changing to a logarithmic scale, but that's how it'll be done. Another thing the trader can do is show the right column as instead of price, we can show that as a percentage. So what this will do, if I click apply and click OK, this is now showing us going back to the very start of the time frame of the chart. It's we're on a weekly chart. Let's go back to a 1-year daily chart. There we go. But for whatever the time frame of the chart, it's going to show us how far the stock is up or down. So in this case, on a 1-year daily, minute 1 of day 1 becomes the 0 point. That's break even. There have been times when we've been as low as 17.5% down, times when we've been as high as looks like about 25% up. Another nifty feature if we know how to use that. So let's uncheck that box for show prices percentage. And let's move on to the time axis. So time axis, we've been talking about changing things according to what's actually, let's go back here to price axis. I do want to, let's click apply so that we're back here to price. There we go. Over to time, this is where we're manipulating along that time scale rather than price scale, the time scale. So we have very first thing is something known as the aggregation type. What in the world is the aggregation type? The way I think about this is if we're using a candle chart, it's a fancy word for the candle length and construction. By default, it's going to be using time. We can use, we can switch that to a tick chart, literally tick by tick. So we can construct candles instead of using, let's say, 1 day. We can construct a candle of let's say 133 ticks, or even just 1 tick. Let me take this down. I've had complaints before. Cameron, why can't we do tick charts on Thinkorswim? Of course you can do tick charts on Thinkorswim. It's right there on the time axis. Just change the candle to tick. Choose how many ticks you want in each candle, and then click apply. So this one, I've switched this to just 1 tick per candle. Means we're not going to even have candles. Can't construct a candle out of 1 tick, so it's just going to be a line. Anyway, I'm going to click apply, click OK, and then I can see advancing tick by tick here. Jim says, why does my expansion area box keep changing on its own? I always have to change it back to the value I want. Jim, that it should be a default. If you've changed your time frame, you come back, you shut it down, you come back to that time frame later, should just still be the same. Might need Again, my apologies. I don't know. Unfortunately, I can't sit there and talk with each person, talk through each of their settings and see what's going on. So you may want to call our support team. But let's go back here. I want to switch our time axis back to just a normal time chart, but we could set a specific range. Okay, so that's a range of time, basically. But if we have this on time, let's talk about what a time interval is. So aggregation type is basically the length of a candle. Day, a tick, several ticks, whatever, a week. Our time interval is the time frame of the whole chart. So right near, I am on a 1 year chart using a time aggregation of 1 day. If I want to switch that, I can change this to, let's say, a 3 year chart with an aggregation period of weekly. What that means is we're now looking at a 3 year chart with weekly candles. So however we set this up, and maybe this is going back to Jim's question. I'm not sure that this is exactly what you're talking about, Jim, but if we've changed this construction on a single chart and then we switch over to another chart, this is known as basically a time zoom. That's the name of it. If we check this box, we're saying, now keep this. I'm going to go use it on a different chart, or maybe if I detach my chart and move it over to the side, I want it to display on all my charts. So if I go to a grid, I want to use this on my grid. Anyway, yeah, that's this box right here. Okay, let's go back to it. Might as well do this. Let's change this to a 3 year weekly chart, click apply. And now we see that our tick charts have disappeared and they're replaced with candles. And our time frame is going to be a 3 year weekly chart. Cool. Switch this back to a day. Click apply. All right, the expansion area, we've talked about an expansion area to give extra space above and below the chart. This is to give extra space over to the right of the chart. Very commonly, you'll see our presenters have extra white space out here so we can draw, let's say, make drawings going out into the future. We can also see future scheduled events appearing on icons out into the future. Can't see those if there is no visible future. So this is going to create extra space in a certain number of bars. So each candle can also be referred to as a bar. So if we're on a daily chart, let's switch this to maybe 10. 10 bars to the right means 10 extra trading days or candles to the right. Click apply, and we now have white space out there. We can also just automatically expand to fit in. Let's say we're displaying our options on our chart. This by default will expand to fit in the options chain. Or if we have a study, let me show this. Let me pop up here. I know Ben Watson and Connie Hill and some of our other presenters commonly use a study known as the probability of expiring cone. Let's add that to our chart. Click apply and click OK. That just do to me? Hold on a second. If I tangled myself up, I know what happened. I added this while, this is a demonstration. So I just added a study, but I've unchecked the show studies. So it just gave me a little reminder. Hey, Cameron, thanks for adding a study. Your audience can't see it because you weren't showing your studies. So that's click apply. Anyway, so when we've added a study like this probability of expiring cone, it needs to go out into the future. But we just said we only want to see 10 bars. Well, that just overrode that preference because it automatically expanded to fit this study that we just added. If we uncheck that box and we click apply, now our probability cone is only partially displayed because it's now defaulting to our preferred expansion area. So yeah, let's expand that to include studies. Click apply. There's that probability cone again. If I move this out of the way, you can see there's our probability cone. But I don't need that probability cone on there right now. Let's take it off. That was just for example purposes to illustrate what I was talking about. All right, so I think what we're going to do here we are going to, we're going to have a part 2. But because I want to be pretty thorough with this, I think there are lots of chart settings. I think that there can be a learning curve to each one of these, but I want this to be a resource that we can come back to. And if we want to rewatch this and really get comfortable with all these studies, I don't want to neglect them. So we'll look at these other ones maybe in part 2 next week. But finally, we have our display settings. We can show a rollover line. What in the world is a rollover line? Well, that's when, if we're looking at a short-term chart, let's say we're looking at let's say a 5-day chart. Each time a day goes by, it creates a dashed vertical line to show that we've rolled over to a new day. That's what that is. All right, cool. We can show expiration Friday, which will also display a dashed vertical line for our options traders. Let me check on the little box here. I'll apply that one to our chart since we're on a 1-year chart. Click apply. What you'll see here is there's now a dashed vertical line that shows for options traders, there's the next, or actually in this case, it's the most recent expiration for the 3rd Friday options. Now, if I were to change my expansion setting up here, let's change this to 20. Click apply. So we're going to create more space out here. Now I can see what the next expiration Friday is for the 3rd Friday contracts. Also, we can check and uncheck a box to show year marking lines. So if I move this over a little bit, you'll notice back here, we transitioned from 2024 to 2025. If I don't want to see that, there are lots of different ways we can customize uncluttered charts with things that we aren't using or don't need. Let's click apply, and that little line is now gone. And finally, the chart navigator. Let me talk about what the chart navigator is. So when we zoom in on a period of time, let me click and drag on a couple of months right here in the middle of the chart. It's going to zoom in on that period, and down at the bottom, I can scroll back and forth to go forward and backward in time while I'm just looking at about 2 months at a time, just scrolling back and forth. Problem is, I don't have the context of what the rest of the chart looks like. I don't know, wait a minute, was it higher in the future? Was it lower in the past? I can't remember. Well, our chart navigator can show that. Let's go up here to our time axis. Let's show the chart navigator. Click apply and click OK. And my scroll bar is still there, but now I can see, oh, so this rectangle represents this time frame in the chart. But I can also see, okay, so prices were coming down leading into this candle, and prices generally were rising, moving out from that candle. So I can move over and see those if I want to. I can click and drag over. But I like this little chart navigator. It just gives us those details that were lost by zooming. So look at all of those settings we covered. Wow. Okay. So we have successfully gone through the general tab, the price axis, the time axis. I think very likely just about everybody would have learned something new here. So I was looking forward to this one. We covered a lot. Don't try to remember everything. The big takeaway is this stuff isn't scary. If we just see a new tool and we want to go in and play around with it, you can learn it pretty quickly. But guys, time for me to let you go. We're going to do part 2 next week. We'll pick up where we left off. We'll go through those next few tabs, get in-depth understanding of these chart settings. But just make sure that you're taking full advantage of the educational offerings from Schwab. Number one is to make sure, if you haven't subscribed to our Trader Talks channel on YouTube yet, do that right now. You can go down the lower right-hand corner, click on that subscribe button. But our YouTube Trader Talks channel is where we house previous webcasts. It's where you can join the current streams. You can even do keyword searches to search through our library of videos. So here's the full name of the channel, Trader Talks Schwab Coaching Webcasts. There are the playlists, there are the live streams, there's that search function. Another thing that I would definitely suggest you do is follow Kevin and me on X. You can find Kevin on X at Kevin Horner CS. You can find me on X at Cameron May CS. And when you reply to one of my posts, I try to reply right back to you. For example, just yesterday, I asked my followers, what in the world are these 2 candles here? This has a name to technical traders. Is this a flag crest? Is it a pile driver? Is it a tweezer top or is it a bear salute candle pattern? So as people have been replying to me, I reply back to them, and it creates a learning environment even in between these live streams when the camera's not off. All right. So everybody, yeah, give us a follow there. There's my handle at Cameron May CS. Also, definitely appreciate every time you click that like button. It shows that you enjoyed the webcast. It also gives a boost to my video in the YouTube algorithm, so more people can find this video about learning about Thinkorswim's chart settings, and they can actually understand how all this stuff works. So yeah, give us a like every opportunity you can. I can see 104 people watching the live stream at the moment, and 43 have clicked the like button. Thank you for that. Everybody, go enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you next week for part 2 in Thinkorswim's chart settings. I'll also look for you in my other webcasts between now and then and on X. But whenever I see you again, until that moment arrives, I want to wish you the very best of luck. Happy trading. Bye-bye.